Welcome to the latest World Cup date for June 13th. All the action from the World Cup in France this summer. Jason Longshore, Jessica Sharman with you today. And we had two games that one lived up to the billing that we set for it yesterday. It was the game of the tournament, I think. And the other one was about what we expected. China wins 1-0. Australia comes back from 2-0 down to win 3-2 in a crazy game to kick it off. And I mean, okay, Jess, do you want to start with talking about the game as a whole, or do we just want to get to the fifth goal that gave Australia the win?
No, let's start with the game. We don't need to focus on the referees. We've done so much of that. Let's soccer do the talking for a little bit before we get into the controversy.
All right, 2-0 Brazil. They jump out. The penalty, the first one, I mean, it's a little soft, but I think it's hard not to call it. Marta
it's
buries
no
it.
complaints. No,
Yeah.
on that one, I mean, you grab the shorts or the shirt, and it was a silly foul. It's hard. Maybe it was a bit of a trip over her home feet, but when you put contact, when you grab someone around the body, you're asking the referee to call it, particularly when you do 100%. Have VAR now.
Exactly. And Marta buries it. She becomes the first player in the Men's World Cup or the Women's World Cup to score in 5 World Cups. She only played 45 minutes, though. And Formiga picked up a yellow. She's going to be suspended the next match. She only played 45 minutes. It was a weird game in that regard because Brazil gets the second goal, which I thought was their best one. It's a great cross from Debinha, and Christian goes up, just dominant header. Just absolutely dominant, what you want out of your number 9. 2-0, Brazil's looking great. Australia's yelling at each other. It looks like a mess. Australia gets one back in stoppage time, and then Vidal, the Brazilian manager, I'm shocked he made a double sub at the halftime break.
Yeah, it was a little crazy to me. With Australia, their heads were down. I even tweeted you, mocking you for your prediction of Australia at the time, because when that second goal went in, they looked lost. They looked dead, and if they hadn't scored right before halftime, I think it would have been game over.
Agreed.
The goal gave Australia momentum. It gave their coach something positive to talk about in the halftime. And I think they just sussed Brazil out. If you look at the goals that come in the second half, it's all down the wing play. Brazil are weak on their wides. They can't stop the crosses, and Australia have that success. But we talk about the subs. It was an odd one for me, particularly with Formiga missing the next game anyway. You don't have to worry so much about resting the players. For someone her age, if she was set, if she only had one yellow, if she wasn't going to miss a game, you might understand resting. Still, the game's not won. 45 minutes is a bit of an odd decision, but you might give the coach a little bit of credit. But to take off 2 of your strongest players, one of them who, has only played 45 minutes in the tournament so far, so is probably raring to go, and one of them who won't play in the next game, it was baffling, and I think it hurt Brazil.
100%. I mean, you took away the leadership. I think you've got to, if you go into that situation and you have decided that Marta's got 45 minutes, and Formiga, I mean, I don't think she was tired. I didn't see any of that. I wouldn't have thought that they would have come in on a minutes restriction with her. You've got to make the decision at halftime that, all right, I've got to keep one of you on. One of you has to stay on for at least 15, 20 minutes. Just to get through this hard part where Australia is going to be throwing everything at the wall. You make the double sub, and then Australia, I mean, it's a little fortunate. Sam Kerr trying to get on the end of it. She doesn't. It's Chloe Lagarzo who gets the goal. It's a cross, but it finds the back of the net, and you're at 2-2, and Brazil's completely lost at that point.
Yeah, we spoke about it offline. For me, Brazil just lacks the maturity, the team spirit, and the leadership. And you mentioned taking off 2 of your natural leaders. When they lose 2 goals and they drop into a tied position, they don't have the mental strength to overcome that. I think in their heads, they realize they've made an error. They realize they've let a lead slip. And from the 2-2 position, they never looked like getting back into the game, into a winning position.
And it's the classic story when it comes to Brazil. They are a very good team when they've got things going their way. They're not a team that you expect to hold on against a team that's fighting back or a team to come back themselves. They just don't really feel like they have that in them. The third goal, which ends up dooming their fates here, it's a weird one, and there's been a lot of back and forth. I do think ultimately the referees got it right. although it does kind of show that there's a bit of a loophole when it comes to the offside rule. By the book, they got it right. And VAR got it. Christina Unkel on the Fox broadcast immediately was like, yeah, that's going to be a goal. They're going to rule that a goal because the defender intentionally played it, and Kerr was not pressuring that defender. She was just in an offside position that created the whole ball initially.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like we've mentioned previously on this pod, as much as VAR may be getting decisions correct, it's highlighting issues with the actual rule in question. Yes. And yes, Uncle was in approving of the decision, but when you look at every single defensive pundit, whether it be Stoney on the BBC, you mentioned one of the goalkeepers on Fox's coverage, they're against it because they understand how it impacts the play of the defensive line. Mm-hmm. Now, the defender, okay, maybe her positioning, Kerr's positioning didn't impact her, but I have to believe that if you know there is a defender, a forward behind you, you go up to clear that ball in a different way. Potentially, if Kerr wasn't there, maybe the goalkeeper comes and collects it. So it puts you in a different position. I also read a couple of things that make sense. That cross would have never gone into play if Kerr hadn't been standing in an offside position. So that 100%. Play would have never occurred. There would have never been a risk of getting it back, because if it's not there, a winger doesn't see an option in the middle. She doesn't play that cross in. So it's an odd one. I was frustrated watching it in real time, just coming from a defensive mindset. And I agreed with the goalkeepers and the defensive line that it's another struggle that defenders have to deal with. And if Kerr, I understand, if Kerr goes up and challenges it more forcefully, it's not a goal because she challenges the ball actively. But in my opinion, still by her standing there, she's impacting the play, and it's a shame that that's no longer part of the rule. The active clause is kind of removed now.
Mm-hmm. It's tricky because, and my argument the other way, and it feels like a lawyer type of argument. Like I don't have a lot of heart in this because I completely agree. That ball's not played in unless Kerr is making that run. Now, does the player who plays it in, does she know that Kerr's offside there? No, she can't tell from where she's at. Nobody knows that. The defender might not know that. And that's where it gets all kinds of tricky, but you don't know what would have happened otherwise. If Kerr's not there, does the defender let it ride? Goalkeeper grabs it. Does the defender not know what's behind her and try to head it away and do the
Which
same
we see
thing?
happen. We see happen in corners, and that's where I understand the argument for the decision. At the end of the day, we see countless times defenders who aren't sure of their surroundings. I mean, look at the own goal for France. You could argue that potentially she feels like Renard feels like there's more risk behind her, which is why she makes a deliberate play on the ball. So it's a hard one. We're going into the psychoanalytics, and that's not what it's about. But you just have to feel a little bit for Brazil. But honestly, 100%. Based on their second half performance, based on the fight and drive they showed, Australia deserved it. And as Kerr said on the broadcast, all the doubters can go suck it. I think she might have been referring to me giving you crap online, Jason.
Maybe so. Maybe she's following along with our World Cup dates. I love the fire out of her, though. And now you have to feel like, because how many times do we see something like this happen? Spain in 2010, for example. They lost their first match. They go on and they win the World Cup. Sometimes you need that wake-up call. And, look, it took Australia a little bit longer than you would have liked. Falling down 2-0 in Game 2 where your World Cup is on the line. You'd hope that the wake-up call would have happened sooner, but you have to think that Australia's in a good spot now. They get Jamaica in the last game of the group. That feels like a game that Australia should be fine in, and then you could be potentially back completely on track, winning the group.
Yeah, and it's all about tournament football is all about getting hot at the right time, as you say. There's no point winning your first game 13-0 if you're not going to stay hot for the rest of the tournament, as the USA knows. And I've emphasized that to all USA fans. Yes, they had a great start, but it's about having those sort of performances in the knockout rounds where it really counts.
Yeah, you have to build in a tournament, and I think Australia, hopefully, is now doing that. This has been a good rivalry. I think this was the game of the tournament. Australia and Brazil have met in some different events over the years, and it feels like there's a little bit of edge to it. We'll see how Brazil bounces back. They get a kind of tricky game in their third one against Italy, and we'll talk a little bit more about Italy in the preview part of it. This group feels completely up for grabs, and depending on what happens with Italy and Jamaica tomorrow, everybody could be on 3 points if chaos happens.
And that's the most exciting thing about World
yeah.
Cup football at the moment. And as we said, there have been a couple of blowouts, but everyone else is still in contention. And that's what we love. That's what we want.
Yes, absolutely. And the last game of the day, China 1-0 over South Africa. About what we expected, although I thought China was maybe good for another goal or even two here. South Africa, for a team in their first tournament, for a team with only 6 players playing outside the country, they've been really impressive. They have not been outclassed at all in this event. And I'm with you in our conversation beforehand that it feels like this is a place where they can build from for the good of the women's game in South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. They've never been embarrassed. And that's the most important thing in a first tournament. You see teams getting blown out, and I think they held their own. We saw them putting the body on the line. They're 1-0 down in the 91st minute, I think. And there's a defensive block where the player sprints across the goalkeeper box and puts her body on the line. And that was an incredible thing to watch. They never gave up. They had a couple of chances. I don't think they capitalized on their strengths again. I think they only had one shot on target, which was disappointing for their front line. But they worked hard, and they have so much potential, and they've done themselves proud. China came in, looked pretty good in the first half. We saw a goal line technology decision prove that the goal wasn't quite over the line for China. But I think they deserved potentially 2 goals. But you know what? South Africa worked and worked and worked. And they deserve to only lose by 1 goal. And it's a shame they couldn't nip one in the end just for the underdog story. But they're going to look back and they can hold their heads up high. And they've got such a young squad. And like you say, only 6 playing overseas. That's 100% going to change after this tournament. They were missing their left back who got sent off. I think that made a difference. They looked slightly weak down the left flank. But you know what? South Africa, as they start to pump more money and as they see more players play professionally so they don't get tired in those games, they're going to be one to watch for next year's tournament. Or next 4 years tournament, rather. I
completely agree with that. Kaylin Swart was the goalkeeper, 24 years old. She made a huge save late as well as the one cleared off the line. Played at Menlo College. I mean, not even a major program. You're going to see these players move on and play professionally. They have, I would hope, attracted the attention of scouts from the professional leagues all around the world. With this result, Germany advances, and now Germany plays South Africa in the final group game. South Africa still has a lifeline here, and they're going to face a team that has already advanced. You've kept games close. At this point, you can just open it up and go for it, and whatever happens, happens. On the flip side, China haven't really been impressive. Solid, I would say, but they kind of lack that personality in the final third. It feels pretty robotic in a lot of ways when you look at this team.
Yeah, it's regimented.
Yeah, they don't have that
military
game changer
style. Yeah, there's none of that creativity, none of that flair. And when they come up against a team that has more creativity, has more flair, I think they're going to struggle.
Yeah, as they did against Germany. I think it showed there. It felt like that game was much more of, China got a decent result, but I didn't feel like they necessarily deserved that. And in this game where they should have had more goals, they couldn't find them. It just feels like they're pretty average in this tournament.
Yeah, and average isn't going to get you in this year when you see so many nations have improved. Average isn't going to get you much further than out of the group.
No, and they'll go into the final day of group play playing Spain, who is on 3 points, has to fight for a spot in the next round, and they should come out all guns blazing. I think Spain is the better team. They should take care of business, and then you have the South Africa situation where Germany maybe rests some players. They do have some injuries already. Maybe they rest some players, and South Africa can put up a number. The final day of that group will be a little more interesting than we thought it would.
Yeah, I think if you look pre-tournament, you had your money on Germany and Spain to walk through the group, and that's what's exciting about tournament play. People show you things that you're not expecting. People up their game because of the moment and because of the experience, and we've seen a lot of close groups and none closer than the games tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's start with the middle game because it impacts Group C in Brazil and Australia. It's Italy and Jamaica. It feels like the classic attacking team in Jamaica with a lot of speed, a team that I still think looked better than the result against Brazil, going up against the Italians, who were very organized, good on the counter, pretty technical. It feels like a clash of styles here.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think when you look at Jamaica, you're looking at athleticism, you're looking at speed, you're looking at that quick ball over the top, and that's going to compare with the Italians, who are going to want to play more passing soccer. I would like to see Jamaica. They're going to be disappointed coming off a 3-0 loss. I think they're going to feel a little bit hard done by, like you said. And I fancy them potentially to at least nip a goal. I would like them to get off the score sheet in their World Cup soccer at least.
Yeah, I think they can. The thing that worries me about it is they've got to stay organized when they do throw numbers forward. They've got to stay organized when they lose possession and Italy counters. And we saw it in that
Schneider's
first game.
Going to be left. I mean, poor Schneider, She was brilliant in the one-on-one situation, but she had a lot of practice at one-on-ones in the game last week, and you've got to hope that the Jamaicans remember that, yes, it's good to go forwards, but you have to stay organized at the back. You have to leave numbers back. Otherwise, you're going to be relying on your goalkeeper, and she just can't save everything.
No, she can't, and not against a forward like Barbara Bonansea from Juventus. I mean, she showed her quality in the game against Australia. If she's on the counter against you, she's going to find goals. I do think Italy gets this win, but I think it is a little more difficult than we all thought it would have been coming into the tournament.
Let's hope for that. Let's hope for a close one.
Yeah, I want an entertaining one. I think we're definitely going to get entertainment out of the Group D matches. And the first game of the day is 9 a.m. It's Japan and Scotland. Scotland, no points coming into this. They lost to England, but I think they were the team that probably, in terms of just performance, if you were judging performance, was the second best team in the group after the first games.
Yeah, I agree. I think Scotland felt hard done by after their last 45-minute performance against England. Obviously, they were complaining about the penalty call. They felt like it could have been a 1-1 game. Scotland offers a lot through their forward play. They've also got a fairly strong defense. They held their own against England, and I think they're playing a weaker side than England with Japan. Japan have already sort of written themselves off. They're already saying they're actually preparing for the Olympics, and when you go in with that mindset, you're not gonna play as well when you're already telling your players that sort of mindset. So I think Scotland has a real good shot if they play to their game. They're going to have been encouraged by the England result. I mean, last time they played England, they lost 6-0. That's something you can only hope to improve on, and I think they're going to do a lot better in this game.
Yeah, I think they get the win. I think Japan, just that mentality is very worrisome if you're pulling for Japan, that you're already looking ahead after one game. I think Scotland gets a win and throws the group into some chaos. Second game, 3 o'clock. I know you're not rooting for the underdog here, England and Argentina. I mean, what can you say about Argentina after that first game where it was just all heart? It was battle. They locked Japan up. They get a point, their first point in a World Cup. England is a whole nother story in terms of attacking quality. I don't think Argentina is going to be able to match that.
I think they're going to try, and I think they might do 45 minutes of hard work, but they're going to be exhausted. Mm-hmm. You're playing against some of the best forwards, at least in English, obviously in the English professional league, but you've also got so much talent in the midfield. I mean, Nikki Paris was insane, and I just think they're going to struggle. And my concern for Argentina is they're going to come in with a very strict game plan like they did. They're going to try and close everything down. They're going to try and shut up shop, but you can only do that for so long. You're in game 2. You've already battled for 90 minutes. It's going to be that much harder against England, both because of the ability of the English team, but also because of the fact you're in game 2. I honestly wouldn't want any team to get slammed. It's never nice to watch, like I say, but I have to put my money on England winning fairly significantly in this game.
Yeah, England has to be patient because I think Argentina will get a lot of numbers behind the ball early, and they have some players who, have quality on the ball. I just don't think they have the athleticism that the English team does. I think they're going to struggle to get out of their own half. But when you're Argentina and you look at this, you're going to know what the result of the Japan-Scotland game was coming in. And I think Argentina, from when the draw happened, had the Scotland game circled as their chance to get out of the group. If you can keep it as a decent number here, and maybe even think about resting a little bit in the second half if you've given up a couple. And you get Scotland in that final game. That could be basically a playoff game to get to the knockout round.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so interesting as well with having these third-place teams going through is goal difference comes into play. And, picking up, they've already got that 1 point. They could see Scotland as potentially a three-pointer. And as long as they shut up England to a certain extent and play their game, they have a real chance. And it will be exciting to get 3 teams out of this group because I think it's a very talented pool.
I kind of think, and there's been a lot of talk about what's the group of death this time around. Group D, in some ways, is that. I think Group C is going to have some arguments about it as well, but Group D, I feel like, is a pretty well-rounded group. And,
it was a surprise group of death.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it wouldn't have ever been looking at it. You thought Argentina was written off. You thought, Argentina's not going to compete. Japan, they have this weird mentality that it's a building year, which I still don't understand that the Olympics is more important than the World Cup to them. Bit of an odd one for me. But you would have never put your money on Argentina getting a tie in their first game. And it's a tough group. And honestly, even as an English fan, you have to be a little bit nervous because we could get complacent. We could think we're the powerhouse in this group. But with Argentina picking up a point, with Scotland having a chance against Japan, if everyone sort of beats each other, it could become a very nervous last game for England.
Yeah, it could, and it's against Japan. It's the toughest one for them in the group outside of the emotion with the Scotland match. So, they need 6. They need 3 points here. They need to get to 6. I think they will, but I don't think it'll be an easy one. I don't think it'll be a blowout from early on. They'll have to work for it.
Definitely. I think the first 45 minutes is key to sort of exhaust the Argentinians. And I think come second half, it's just going to be that professional level of play that sees them through.
Okay, so 3 games tomorrow, and this is one of the best days of the tournament so far. Japan and Scotland in the 9 o'clock game, Jamaica and Italy in the noon match, and then England-Argentina in the 3 p.m. match. We'll be back tomorrow after everything is done, and we'll see how Jess is feeling about her English squad after a match with Argentina.
Keep your fingers crossed.
It's going to be a bunker. You're going to have to break it down. It's coming. We'll see how this goes. It's going to be a fun day at the Women's World Cup. Thanks, everybody, for listening.